Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking your time out in your day to attend our webinar on delivering brilliant CX through customer service and automation. We're just going to wait a few more minutes to see if anyone else wants to join on to our webinar. But just to give you a little bit of housekeeping, my name is Selina. I'm here to help you with anything that you may need during the webinar. I am actually joined here today by our presenters, Tim Farrell, Sabio's Digital Engagement Specialist, and Grant Mill, all the way in Singapore, our CTO for Flex Answer. So I'd like to just go through a couple of housekeeping just before we start, and I'll pass it over to Tim Farrell. So if anyone's got any issues, any problems that they want, there is like a hand symbol on your panel on the right hand side. If you just raise that, and I can assist you throughout the webinar if there's any hearing or audio disruptions. Also, there's a box that says questions on it. Throughout the webinar, if you have any questions that you want to raise to any of our speakers, feel free to pop your question in there, and we will get to your question towards the end of the webinar, where we'll have plenty of time to go through. Yeah, so we'll be answering that at the end. So I think it's top of the hour. I am actually going to pass you over to our speaker, Tim Farrell from Sabio.
Thank you, Selina. So I think if we start off by just thinking about what is a virtual assistant, some of you might have heard the term before, some of you might have heard the term chatbot. There are distinct differences between the two, virtual assistant and chatbot. I think over the coming years, they will become a bit more interchangeable and they'll do the same thing. So during the course of the presentation and the webinar, you might hear me refer to the solution as a chatbot or indeed a virtual assistant or a VA. They really mean the same thing. But if we think about what is a virtual assistant or what is a chatbot, let's think about what it isn't initially. So the virtual assistant itself, it's not a technical product. A lot of people have this view that a virtual assistant or a chatbot, it's super complicated, it's a bunch of servers in the cloud, it's some sort of technical solution. And the truth is that there are servers behind it, there's AI, there's natural language processing, that's all there in the cloud, but you don't have to worry about that. That's all taken care of for you. We do that. We build the technology. We manage the technology. It's a complete cloud solution. From our customer's point of view, it's very much a operational tool. In fact, most of the buyers that I talk to, they are operational people, heads of contact center and so on, because the reality is that the virtual assistant is really just an agent, another agent in your operational team. So we've built all the technical details. You don't worry about it. You don't worry about the virtual assistant getting ill, anything like that. All you need to do is the same kind of activities you do with your human agents, right? So you train your human agents, you upskill them, you keep them current on knowledge and changes within the organization. It's exactly the same with the virtual assistant. It's simply an operational tool, and we look after it the same way. If we now look at what a number of our customers are using the virtual assistant for, so the first is what we call a concierge bot. It really is what it says on the tin. The concierge bot is always available. It's really easy for users to consume. It's really easy for users to interact with. The next one is a contact us deflector. It's one of my favorites. A lot of organizations are actually taking a bold step in replacing their contact us page with a virtual assistant. And it's really bold because in the past, a lot of people had a contact us page and here's a bunch of phone numbers, whereas now we're actually saying, well, let's rely on some technology, a virtual agent to solve this problem. And what the contact us deflector does is it does offer an opportunity to deflect visitors whilst keeping contact options available for customers who need or want them. We'll go into the contact us Deflector a bit more in the coming slides, but we have seen great success here in the financial services sector, especially insurance. Contact for insurance, it can be quite infrequent. Customers only contact insurance when they want to make a change or get some documents. So there's been some sort of problem and they need to make a claim. So they're not really aware of what self-serve options exist because they don't have a day-to-day relationship with their insurer. But the truth is it can apply to any industry where contact could be irregular. So retail sales, for example, banking, other industries. So we'll look at that in a few moments. The next item is an FAQ replacement. So FAQs, I really don't like them. They're kind of 1990s, early 2000s. They're quite clunky. Here's a page of FAQs. And actually, it's not always FAQs. It's really just a page of here's some questions that might have been important at one stage, or some questions that legal say we need to answer or that we want to display to our users. So from the FAQ replacement, what we actually do is we can actually use a virtual assistant to front that, make it much more easier to navigate and act as a much more intelligent search tool to navigate through all those FAQs. So that's good for all types of organizations where FAQs exist. And then lastly, Problem Resolver. So we've had some great success with organizations who are using Virtual Assistant for specific tasks. So one of the organizations we work with operates a service desk, so really IT problems, but there are other specific tasks as well. So let's take an example of a consumer goods company. You may well have customers with warranty claims, and they come through and they think, oh well, we need to speak to somebody to organize a warranty claim. The truth is you don't. You can allow the virtual assistant to do that troubleshooting, diagnose the issue, and then if it's a warranty claim, the virtual assistant can be fully automational and it can arrange an engineer to call out. Alternatively, outside a warranty period, the virtual assistant can take credit card details, process a payment, and organize the engineer that way, all without human intervention. So it's a problem resolver as well. The truth is, it is all of the above. So all of those four things and more. When you launch Virtual Assistant, it becomes a face of your organization. You can see on the right-hand side, we've got that beautiful virtual assistant. She is a face of the organization. Like with any agent, a customer could ask her anything. How can I help you today? So if we delve into a bit more detail into the different types of operational tools we've deployed. So first and foremost, the concierge bot. So the concierge bot is always available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we deploy concierge bot across your various different touch points. This could be on a web page as one of these sticky buttons on the right hand side. It could be on a tracking page in the logistics sector. Alternatively, if you've gone down the social route and you've got a messenger channel or a WhatsApp or even Telegram, any of these different channels, SMS is a popular one as well, then the concierge bot is just sat there waiting for your customers' questions. So it's really useful from that point of view. It's also really easy to do business with as well because it's sat there all the time. I'm going to tell you a bit about one of my customers who has deployed this type of concierge bot. So they had demand for around 80,000 human-assisted web chats per month. Following the introduction of Virtual Assistant, they're now servicing 25,000 web chats a month. And what's striking for this particular customer is they have a portal page for users who log in. And what we saw is a drop of 90% traffic on that particular page. And when we did some analysis, what we actually found is that people were using live chat as a concierge to say, how do I make a change? How do I do something? How do I carry out a particular activity? And the live chat agent would help them to do that rather than educate the user about the existing self-serve functionality. So the concierge bot's been really good there. But the key point of this is that actually 25,000 web chats per month today, but the VA conversations, the chatbot conversations are now at 80,000 per month. So we had demand for 80,000 web chats, but now in total you've got over 100,000 digital interactions per month with this particular brand because it's easy to do business with. It's always sat there. You don't have to wait for an agent. What we see is that people ask the virtual assistant questions which they may not have thought to make a phone call about or make a chat because it's just there. And also think about sales performance, think about service performance. She's always sat there on the page waiting to respond overnight, and when you're not there, it increases conversions, it increases self-serve success rate as well. So that's all good. If we then move on to our Contact Us deflector, or the FAQ replacement. So the FAQ replacement, what we tend to find with organizations, and I've been there myself and many years ago, is that we set up FAQs as part of a working group. So people from different departments, potentially a committee, it's maybe done as a one-time thing, as a project. Sometimes there's changes in the organization and somebody says, oh, we better update the FAQ, or maybe there's been a regulatory requirement or something has happened and the organization wants to share information with customers because it thinks that's important. So what we find is FAQs are quite often not driven by user demand, but by what the organization thinks users want. So what we found is that introducing the virtual assistant as an FAQ replacement, it drives increased adoption because the virtual assistant's there and easy to use. And it also gives organizations the opportunity to identify their actual frequently asked questions and provide responses to them. So again, I've got another example here of a different organization we've worked with, and this is really quite a recent example here. So they had an FAQ section on their website with 600 unstructured frequently asked questions. There was basic search functionality. You could type something into the search box. It wasn't natural language, it was more keywords and so on, but limited MI available, so they knew how many people had asked a question. They didn't really know what it was about. They didn't know how many people actually clicked on an FAQ, but crucially, they didn't know how successful the FAQs were at servicing those users. So what we did is we replaced their FAQs page with the Sabio virtual assistant. And immediately after launch, we saw an increase of 10% in engagement. So people interacting with the new FAQ replacement, the chatbot. And what we were also able to demonstrate is that actually at launch, we were achieving 60% automation from these queries. So again, we don't know how that compared to the existing FAQs because no AMI was available. But now that we have that number, we're working with the organization to improve the content available. So we've already identified over 100 new questions that need answers to, that people are actually asking about. And what we can then do is track performance over time and see how successful these FAQ replacements are. But yeah, amazing start, 60% automation at launch and 10% increase in engagement. So it really works well as an FAQ replacer. Okay, and now we do have the Contact Us deflector. So the Contact Us deflector is the intelligent way of deflecting customer queries. So a lot of you have seen different contact pages, lots of them are available. Let's take a look at a few. So this first one, this is an American organization. I have no idea who it is, but they've got some really easy options here. Talk to sales or contact customer support, which happen to be a chat facility. So it's really good for the customer because they get an easy contact option. But from an organizational perspective, there's no deflection in place at all. The second one is a mobile phone network here in the UK. What you've got toward the right-hand side is a bunch of telephone numbers. On the left, you've got some potentially frequently asked questions or really questions that the organization thinks are helpful. It doesn't look so great. When I'm looking at that particular page, I just see a bunch of phone numbers on the right-hand side. It's really easy for me to use. This organization does actually have live chat facility, but not on this page. So they're actually trying to engage users by the most expensive option possible, by telephone. So I don't like that one either. But the one I do like, and this I'm quite biased, it's one of my clients, is this particular one. So this is what we call the Contact Us deflector. This organization here has replaced their Contact Us page with a virtual assistant, and we're going to do a bit of a demo in a moment. But first, let me just talk about what this does. It makes it really easy to get an answer to the question. So you can see here the virtual assistant introduces herself by saying I can answer questions 24/7. It offers some frequent, some common usage ones, making a change to the policy online, connect you to an online chat agent for anything more complex, and also finding the right phone number if you need to get in touch. This particular organization, they're obviously very well respected in their particular vertical. They really care about their customers. So they take the view that actually we're quite happy for customers to contact us, but maybe they don't need to. So it's not a case of let's say some custom unfriendly organizations, the likes of Ryanair and so on, who may say we don't want you to contact us. This organization, they're quite happy for you to get in touch, but they wanted to see, well, what if we allow customers to self-serve and push them down that route? And what we found with the organization is that actually on this particular page, the Contact Us page, 85% of people come in and ask a question. Only 15% of people start by saying, give me a phone number. So that's really, really good. So let's take a look at that particular one, and we will go here. So this is the virtual assistant. I've come into the Contact Us page. As you can see, there's no phone number present. So let's ask a very basic question. So some people like to drive fast. They get tickets. So do I need to tell you about a speed awareness course? So in this one, we get a nice answer which says you don't need to tell us. Now, without this Contact Us deflector in place, the individual would have made a phone call to be told this information, tying up an agent, increasing call queues, and ultimately cost for the organization. In this case, the virtual assistant has provided a great answer, and that user does not need to contact the organization. We'll try something a bit more complex here. So one of the most frequent use cases for the insurance market is making changes. So okay. So in this case, the user's bought a new vehicle. We wanted to start within the next 2 hours. Can you answer yes to the following statements? We do some qualification here to make sure that that user is eligible to make a change online. If yes, we provide a link. So we provide a link, and that's to a self-serve option that this organization has in place to allow them to make the change online. It's really good. But if the user then says, can I do this by phone instead? Then what we do is we get the contact option. So it's not necessarily about saying you cannot contact us. It's more giving people the nudge that you can actually do things online. So in this example, I can use live chat, or I can find a telephone number by clicking here instead. So that's really the Contact Us deflector. So I think that's a really good, it's really easy to use, and you can automate significant traffic. We've got a nice slide coming up which tells you more about what we've done there and what stats we're seeing there. But I didn't get a screenshot of this, but one of the exact opposites of this is actually Amazon. So you might think Amazon, they're known for their great customer service and so on, but try and find a phone number for Amazon or even a Contact Us page. It's really, really difficult. And I think Amazon is one of these organizations we could really help them by putting one of these Contact Us pages in place to actually deflect the traffic. But yeah, so that's our Contact Us deflector. Now, what we'll look at next is just how we identify the use cases for building a virtual assistant. So it does seem quite simple, but we've got our use cases here, and what organizations say to me as well, most of our queries are about 4 or 5 main topics, standard 80-20 split. So top 5, top 10 topics. And they say, well, we want to service these by the virtual assistant. But the problem is that the end user, the customer, your customer, doesn't know that those are your use cases. All they see is a box saying, how can I help? Please type your question. So that user doesn't know. So, and what you're doing is you're making yourself very easy to do business with. So in terms of building your business case, then you're looking at your top contacts, top 5 or 10 contacts. You're looking at the cost of servicing those. You're looking at the volume of those coming in, and that helps you build the business case. But what we try and do is we try and go live with around 100 user questions at launch, and what that does is that helps the users, the end customer, to get an answer to what they need. Now, just before I hand over to Grant, I'm just going to go through some initial stats around a successful virtual assistant. Now, this is what we're seeing between 3 and 6 months into a deployment. Now, at the top left, we've put many VA conversations per month. There's not a good number here because, and the reason we say many is because it's not unlimited, but you'll get more than you think. A lot of organizations think, well, if we do 20,000 by the virtual assistant, we'll get rid of 20,000 calls. It doesn't work that way. You may well get rid of your 20,000 calls or your 20,000 web chats, but you'll take on 40 or 50,000 VA conversations because it's so easy to do business with. 3 to 6 months in, you'll get 85% accuracy. Some organizations see more. We've worked with one organization, one insurer, they're seeing upwards of 90%. Another customer in the logistics sector, they're getting 92% accuracy 3 to 6 months after launch. In the middle here, we're talking about automation. So between 65 and 70% of all contacts are automated. In this particular example, you've got just over a third of people getting a business answer. Here's your answer, go away. At the bottom, you've got just under a third. Here's your answer, and go to this form to complete your transaction. What we want to do with that particular organization, what we can do with other organizations is, rather than deflect visitors to forms, we're going to bring that activity into the virtual assistant itself. So it's much more transactional and conversational, and the user can carry out a wide range of transactions, such as logistics tracking, redeliveries, warranty repairs, all within the virtual assistant itself. On the right hand side, you've got maybe 250 user questions. There's no limit on that. It's however many questions your users ask, we will build them. And then at the bottom right, we reference the stat on the Contact Us deflector. 85% of people try the VA first. And that's astounding, and we love that. So I think I'm going to hand over to Grant now. If you do have any questions on the content that I've shared in this part of the presentation, then please ask away while Grant is speaking, and we will pick those up towards the end of the webinar. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Tim. Thanks for the introduction. Hi, everyone. I'm going to talk now in a bit more detail about what Tim has explained there, and go into a case study on one of our major customers, which is the Singapore government. So the Singapore government has a Smart Nation initiative for a whole of government virtual assistant. And this is called Ask Jamie. It is known across Singapore as Ask Jamie, or even as AJ. As far as we know, the Singapore government, Ask Jamie, is the largest whole of government virtual assistant of its kind in the world. Even though Singapore is not the largest country, but the amount of content they have in here is very large. So what the Smart Nation initiative with the whole of government virtual assistant objectives were to do the obvious things, such as simplify citizens' interactions, provide self-service, reduce phone calls, help people deal with the complexities of government. And that's where the no wrong door objective really comes into it. Going to any government can be complex and difficult to navigate because you don't know which government website to go to. So with the no wrong door policy, what Ask Jamie allows you to do is go to basically any government website if you're not sure which one it is, and you can ask a question and not only get an answer from the government agency that you're interacting with, but Ask Jamie can also look across all of the other government departments and agencies that Ask Jamie is deployed upon and be able to find an answer from there. So that no wrong door is a major part of the whole of government virtual assistant in Singapore. This began in 2014 with a proof of concept across 4 sites. Following the success of that, FlexAnswer was awarded the whole of government bulk tender, and the simple reasons that we were successful was that we were cost effective, customizable, and were able to move quickly and be agile. That grew in 2016 to 23 sites, in 2017 to 48 sites, 2018 into 78 sites, and currently we're in excess of 80 plus sites. And over that time, we integrated with additional features such as live chat, with Ask Jamie Voice, which is answering telephone calls, and I'll go into some more detail on that. And we also integrated to the Singapore government's whole of government single sign-on, which is called SingPass, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. So here's some of the government agencies that are part of the Ask Jamie initiative. Not all of these will be recognisable to those outside of Singapore, but we have a very broad range of scope of government agencies. We have a pension fund, we have the Singapore Tax Office, we have the Ministry of Defence, we have the Singapore Police Force, we have a number of polytechnics, and we even have the Public Service Division on their intranet. So Ask Jamie is not just on the internet, it is also publishing content across the government intranet for civil servants to be able to get answers to their questions simply, and that information is segregated. So those on the intranet can get access to both intranet and internet answers, but those public citizens can only get content which is published on the internet itself. So a few basic stats on what Ask Jamie has been doing over the last number of years. As I said, it is deployed across more than 80 different internet and intranet sites, and it's been delivering up to 30% call deflection. So that's a major reduction across government agencies into the number of phone calls that are coming into call centers, which would normally operate only, working hours, but Ask Jamie is able to do that across the whole timescale. The knowledge base that Ask Jamie is using is in excess of 42,000 pieces of information in the form of answers. So there's a major knowledge base that has built up over time. Ask Jamie has answered in excess of 10 million questions, and that's growing exponentially as the number of agencies being deployed with Ask Jamie increases. Over the time, we've added more than 80 enhancements and customizations. We've been learning from what the citizens are requiring, what government agencies are needing, and we've basically been improving that over time. And as I said, in 2017, we implemented what we call Ask Jamie Voice, and it started answering telephone calls, and we've been delivering call deflection from between 30 to 50%, in addition to the deflection that is occurring on the web by having Ask Jamie where people can actually type. So it's about enriching the customer experience. I'm a member of public, I've got a question, I can use the Ask Jamie virtual assistant not just on the web using text now. I can interact across multiple channels. I can interact by making a telephone call, which instead of being answered by a contact center agent or an IVR, it now gets answered by Ask Jamie, and you can ask a question in your voice just as the way you would type on the web. You can also use it on social media or across the intranet, as I said. And then we don't expect virtual assistants to be able to answer all questions. So we need to have the ability for the virtual assistant to know when it needs to escalate to other channels outside of the virtual assistant. So we can set up the virtual assistant to be able to know what to, how to escalate, how to send the user to a human or to other channels. In addition, the virtual assistant is able to connect to APIs, other third-party applications, or even using RPA to do transactions and return information to the user pertaining to that particular member of the public, their personal information in a secure environment, rather than just giving static answers. And that becomes a whole new avenue for people to be able to interact with government rather than using a web form, etc., or actually making a telephone call. So some of the new skills that Ask Jamie's been learning over time that I explained before. So with our virtual assistant on the telephone call, sometimes people want a hard copy. So I've been talking to Ask Jamie on a telephone call, and I didn't really make any notes of what she was telling me, so I can request for a hard copy of the answer that I was given, and that can be sent as the form of a link in an SMS. And then when I click that link in that SMS, it opens in my browser and displays directly the answer to the question that I asked earlier. And so I can get that and walk away with that copy. We can also, on the Singapore Tax Office, we can check our property tax balance. And then more complicated transactions using authentication with that SingPass single sign-on that I mentioned, we can actually find out how much tax we owe. So we can ask the virtual assistant, how much do I owe? Do I owe any money in tax? When do I have to pay it, etc.? And I can get that answer back from Ask Jamie. We also have a GPS locator. So if the answer that is being given is dependent upon the location of where I am right now, then using that GPS locator, we can amend that answer depending upon where we are. We can also do geospatial mapping. So the Ministry of Social and Family has a list of childcare centres, and based upon where we are, we will get a list and a map of the childcare centres nearest to us in the order of where they are located. So simply by asking a question, I can find out where's the nearest childcare centre. And then that pension fund that we talked about, they have a calculator online. So we can fill in a few details and then the virtual assistant will go and calculate my education instalment. So a few more details on Ask Jamie Voice. So using the same knowledge base, the same training and the same NLP as Ask Jamie Web, we can implement Ask Jamie Voice. So we're only maintaining one set of knowledge base. We're only teaching one NLP engine, but we're dealing with two separate channels. In addition, we can have what we call voice-specific answers, as some web answers are too complex or too long to be given out as voice answers over the phone. So in addition to a web-based answer, we can also put in an answer that is specific to the voice channel. That is something that is more relative to what we're doing on the phone. So it's currently being used on multiple Singapore government hotlines. As I said earlier, we're achieving call deflections of between 30 and 50%. And for one agency, it achieved in a matter of months the lowest call center volume in the previous 5 years. So some of the features there, that we're constantly building. So things that we learnt over time was being able to do call recording. So the entire interaction with Ask Jamie is recorded. And if Ask Jamie voice cannot continue answering the person's question, we can also then hand that over to a call center agent to continue that conversation. So this is an example of Ask Jamie voice providing an answer. So this is the hard copy answer, and on the left is the link that allows you to get that hard copy of that question that you asked in your own language, and you can get that answer back as a hard copy, so you can walk away and show your partner, or keep it as a copy if you want to keep. So we've had a long roadmap with Ask Jamie in the Singapore government, and that roadmap continues. So the next future for Ask Jamie is continued expansion. It is an ongoing process that we continue to add more government agencies. More government agencies are implementing Ask Jamie voice and implementing transactions. And the next step will be launching a whole of government Facebook Messenger called Ask Jamie Bot. So that will be the next interactive channel that we'll be setting up. So thank you for listening in. And as Tim said, if you have any questions, we're happy to assist with those. Selena, over to you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Tim and Grant. And thank you, Grant, all the way in Singapore, and Tim in London. I can actually see a few questions coming in, and I've got one actually directed to you, Tim. This is from Sarah. Sarah says, you mentioned accuracy of 85%. What happens to the rest?
It's a great question. So with accuracy, the aim of the virtual assistant is to give a great response first time, but behind it is a natural language engine, a bit of AI. It's not a human being. It does understand things in slightly a different way. So the key is how we handle those. So typically we have a 2 or 3 strike attack, our method of attack with accuracy. So if the virtual assistant doesn't understand the user, it could say either, well, I don't understand, can you try to rephrase? It might also say, well, I think you meant this. Can you just confirm that you did? It will try that. On a second occasion, it might offer, here are a few topics which may be of interest. And then on the third occasion, like Grant explained, there's different options we can use. So we say, well, I know I can't help you now because I just don't understand you. Let me get you through to a real person. And that could be through live chat with estimated wait time in place. It could be through to a telephony agent. It could even be data collection to a web form. But we never leave those users stranded. We always try and get them an answer or to somebody who can. Hopefully that helps.
Brilliant. Thank you, Tim. I have actually got a question from Adam. This might be directed towards maybe Tim or Grant, actually. So how does having a chatbot benefit multilingual contact centers?
Okay, so I'm happy to take that. So typically a virtual assistant is capable of dealing with multiple languages. So at FlexAnswer, we can have not only multiple channels, but we can have multiple language answers within a single knowledge base. So that single knowledge base can have channel specific answers for web, for voice, for bot, etc. And we can have language specific answers. So we don't believe in translating answers outbound. It's much better to have a predefined curated answer. So we're capable of having language 1, language 2, language 3 answers all stored under the one knowledge base, dealing with that across different channels.
Brilliant, thank you, Grant. And I've actually got another question directed to you, Grant, from Sam. So does the voice bot use the same answers as for the web VA?
Okay, yeah. So we can use a single knowledge base and use all of the same web answers for the voice, but our experience shows that sometimes those web text answers don't present so well in voice. And what we found is simply if the answer is more than about 30 seconds, it gets a bit boring to listen to. So what we found is that it's better to put in a short form answer specifically for voice. So we're able to deal with a web-based answer as well as a voice-specific answer in the case where an answer is simply too long or too complex for dealing with over the phone. Hope that helps.
Brilliant, thank you. And this will be the last one we have time for, guys, but I've got one from Julie, probably directed towards you, Tim. If a customer has a conversation with the bot, then chooses to telephone the customers, are the call handler able to get that bot conversation?
It all depends on how we integrate it. It's a lot easier to do with web chat. So in all the deployments we've done to date with the virtual assistant, typically it's under the assumption that a lot of people will go through to web chat, and then the conversation is passed into the web chat agent at that time for the agent to get the context. It's not something we've done with any customer today in the telephony world, because a lot of our customers are trying to move away from telephony and to more digital channels. But the same principle would apply as long as we know who the customer is, and that could be, for example, a policy number or a customer number or some other piece of information. Then we can tie that conversation into the customer record, so it just becomes another interaction in your CRM in the same way that that previous call might be.
Can I just expand on that? What we're setting up in Singapore for Ask Jamie Voice is to be able to hand over to the call center agent before they even pick up the call that's been transferred from the virtual assistant, so that they can display on their screen what questions were already asked by the caller when they spoke to the virtual assistant, so that the agent knows what the person's been speaking about and can assist them with that straight away. So that's, yes, it's dependent upon technology availability, but it is eminently doable.
Brilliant. Thank you, guys, for your questions that you've put forward. And again, thank you, Tim and Grant, for answering them. So unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. If we didn't answer your questions on this webinar, we're happy to answer them after the webinar, and we'll get in touch. But once again, thank you for your time, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.